Hi everyone, it's Nishi here. So today I'm just going to do a solo episode by myself. And if you're watching this is our emergency episode, which means successive podcast guests have let me down at the last minute. And be sure to check the comments where our name and shame. No, just kidding. All right, let's start over. So one thing I've realised though is quite often a lot of businesses out there they're just targeting the 3% or the 1% of people in their industry who are looking to buy at that time, and they're all competing for that 1 or 3%. And this is the challenge. All these businesses are all competing for the same work, and what that means is essentially they end up paying really high amounts for their pay-per-click budgets. They end up paying premium amounts for advertising to be in those places where the people who want to buy right now are. Hi everyone, you're listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast, and before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know I started this podcast because over the years I've had hundreds of the most inspiring conversations of my life with small business owners, and they really helped me grow and scale my own business and get my mindset right even when times were really tough. I wanted to capture those conversations and make them available to other small business owners who are following in my footsteps, and I've just got a small request. If you enjoy this episode, if you find it really inspiring, if you find it helps you in your own business, then please just like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. The more subscribers we get, the more we can invest in making the podcast better. So enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, it's Nishi here. Hope you're having a really good day. So today's podcast, we're going to do something slightly different. And what we're going to do in today's podcast is actually just talk about my own experiences running my business in terms of marketing. Because if you've been following me for a number of years, you've probably seen that I've tried a lot of things, which means I've spent a lot of money and effort figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And what I wanted to do in today's episode is just let the audience that's watching this benefit from that. So that's what I'm going to go into. Today's episode, just a loose structure. So it is about marketing. You might be thinking, hey, this guy's an accountant. Why is he talking about marketing? Well, I am an accountant. I'm the manager of an accounting business, not just manager, owner. And what that means is I'm putting my business owner hat on today, and then I'm going to talk about what's worked well from a marketing point of view. Because actually a lot of you, especially if you're earlier on in your journeys, then you're probably trying to figure all this out for yourself. So if you can learn a few things about what went right, what went wrong from me, you might be able to save yourselves a lot of effort and just go straight to the really effective stuff for your business. I'll give you a bit of an overview of what I want to go through today. So first thing I want to really cover is how my understanding of marketing has changed over the last 10 years. You know, what do I know about marketing today, and what did I think about it back then? And it's a very different mindset I'm in today, because I've been through a lot of stuff, tried a lot of stuff, spoken to a lot of people, and really understood the essence of marketing and business. So I want to help you guys understand the benefit of that. Then what I'm going to do is just talk you through all the different marketing things I've tried over the years, and why they worked, why they didn't work, and also the ones that worked, why we don't necessarily do them today. So that's also really interesting. Because there are things that I know work that we don't do today, and I'm going to explain why that is as well. And then I'm going to just have a bit of a dig at marketing agencies, but not in a really harsh way. Just a really constructive explanation of why they do work and why they don't work. And it's really important because there are some absolutely amazing marketing agencies out there. And there's other marketing agencies I've seen over the years where they don't always get a result for their clients despite charging quite a lot of money. So as business owners, if you really understand what those marketing agencies are structured to do and how they deliver their results, then you'll have a good understanding of how you can get the most out of working with a marketing agency. I know, once again, I'm putting my business owner hat on because accountants shouldn't really know a lot about marketing agencies, but I do because I've worked with many. And ultimately, as you're scaling your business, it'll be very difficult for you to scale your business without working with marketing agencies. So you've just got to really understand and learn from my experiences about how you can tell what a good agency is and what they should be doing for you. And then finally, I'm going to just wrap this up with an explanation of what our marketing strategy is today, and essentially, and then explain why we use that particular strategy and why we don't use other things. So If you're running a similar business to ours, which is particularly like business to business in terms of sales and approach, then that last section I think will be quite valuable for you, because you might be in a position where you can actually just replicate our marketing setup. So let's talk about what I've actually learned over the last 10 years when it comes to marketing. Okay, what did I think 10 years ago when I first started my business? Well, I'll try and put you into my mindset when I first started my business. So I'd just given up work. I'd worked about a 3-month notice period. In that 3-month notice period, I was building my own website. So I was using a bit of software called Wix, and this bit of software was quite good. It helped me just build a website from scratch. It was one of those drag and drop builders, and like it was today. We wouldn't use it mainly because we outsource a lot of our web development, but also Wix, while it was really easy to use and set up, apparently it wasn't particularly clean on the SEO side of it. So the code behind Wix is apparently quite messy. That's what I've heard. I'm not an SEO expert, so but that's why. Although when we did use Wix, we did get our website to rank. So that's how I started. I didn't have enough money for a website, but when I started out, I had about £5,500 in savings. So I had some other money set aside just to live off while I was building up my business, but. Really, that £5,500, which I had in savings, was my marketing budget. And back then, I didn't really understand the concept of marketing. I just understood the concept of advertising. So this is one of the biggest things that's changed over the years, how I really understand what marketing is and the difference between marketing and advertising. So back then, I always had the opinion, okay, well, if I spend money on this and enough people see it, they will become 1% of them. It was probably even lower than that, 0.1% of them, of the people that see that advert, will become clients. And that's what I was desperately hoping for. So when I first started out in business, I would just try lots of different things and with lots of different target markets in lots of different locations, and then hope that 0.1% of people who'd see it would become a client. And the reality was, that was like a best case scenario, but we in a lot of those marketing avenues, or advertising routes, we would actually get leads, but they weren't always really good, well qualified leads, and they weren't leads that were going to convert or pay any real kind of money. So, but back then, what I really believed in was advertising, and today I understand how marketing really works. So one thing that was a bit of a game changer for me when I was actually working with people was I got a sales and marketing coach. She's also a business coach, actually. Her name's Amanda C. Watts, and she specializes in working with accountants. But where she really focuses is like sales and marketing for accountants. And she really helped me understand something. So when I first started working with her about 2 years ago, she gave me a really, really useful statistic. And that's kind of the statistic I've based all of our marketing around. So back, 10 years ago, I'd be like, hey, look, if 0.1% of people hold their hands up and then buy from us, then this marketing's worthwhile. But we kept jumping around in terms of marketing strategy because we could never quite get that 0.1% result. And I think it was really a fantasy that doesn't really exist in a lot of areas. But one thing Amanda really helped me understand was when you have 100 people who are engaged with you, who are in the right target market for what you're selling, and who need your solution, and if you've identified 100 of the right people and they're actively engaged online, then what will happen is 3% of that 100 people, so 3 of those people will need what you're selling them straight away. And then another 7% of those people will need what you're selling them within 3 months. And then another 40% of those people will need what you're selling them within 2 years. And 50% of those people will never, ever buy from you. Maybe because they've already got an accountant in the family, maybe because they like your message, but their business just isn't compatible in a particular way. Maybe because there is still an element of your service that doesn't quite fit their requirements. So it was quite an eye-opener. Obviously, I don't take every statistic I see at face value, but I could almost believe this one. And history since then has really proven it right, in my opinion. So, but what that tells you is like, 3% of people are up for grabs straight away. But this is about targeting stuff, really highly targeted marketing. I'm not talking about like just putting a billboard on the side of on the side of the road or a sign in a bus shelter. What I'm really talking about is finding the right kind of people, connecting with them in the right kind of places where they're active, and then giving them the right kind of content. But 3% are ready straight away to buy from you. But what this means is if you're consistent and you keep in touch with those 100 people over 2 years, you can get 50 customers out of that. And I absolutely do believe that. We're not quite at the 50% mark at the moment, but all the time we're doing marketing and we're in touch with this client base, the number of customers coming in from it this prospect base, the number of customers coming in from it does increase. So there's like an exponential growth on because of that. So I absolutely believe that it works. But one thing I've realized though is quite often a lot of businesses out there, they're just targeting the 3% or the 1% of people in their industry who are looking to buy at that time, and they're all competing for that 1 or 3%. And this is the challenge. By the way, when I say 3%, I'm talking about people who have been like qualified as a lead, but for most businesses, it could be like 1% or 0.1% that of people in their industry that's looking to buy at any one point. So all these businesses are all competing for the same work. And what that means is essentially they end up paying really high amounts for their pay-per-click budgets. They end up paying premium amounts for advertising to be in those places where the people who want to buy right now are. And in my opinion, back then, I used to think that's the way to do it. If someone is looking to buy from you, make sure you're there. But now my understanding's changed quite a lot. My understanding today is all about, okay, well, there are people who are quite likely going to be clients one day, but they just don't need me right now. And what I need to do is just be in front of them. And within 2 years, I'm confident that 50% of those people, as long as I'm connected with them in the right ways, with the right content, they will eventually become clients. And that's a really important strategic difference and change in strategy that I've implemented now, because it means we're taking a much longer view in terms of our marketing. It means we're being a lot more careful with our cash balances. Someone will come along and say, well, if you can spend £1,000 on Google pay-per-click or Google AdWords or Facebook ads, and you can get a client back who's going to give you a profit of £1,500. You're doing better. You've made a profit there. So why not spend £1,000 to get 1,500 back in profit? Well, there's a few things you just got to challenge there. Well, yeah, it will be 1,500 back in profit after you paid for the advertising costs. It's probably 500. You can argue, okay, well, it's going to add value to your business potentially if they're a long-term client. You can find a way to get that repeat income from them. But the other side is you've really got to think about opportunity cost. It's so easy when you're marketing to just say, okay, well, if I'll do that thing, and if I just get one more client, that thing I did is going to pay for itself. You're not, when you're trying to scale your business, that's not the way to think anymore. The way to think when you're trying to scale your business is actually, look, I can spend £1,000 getting £1,500 of profit through that marketing method, or I could spend £1,000 getting £5,000 of profit through that marketing method. Because when you do find the right marketing method, assuming your target market's big enough, there's no reason you can't double down on it. There's no reason you have to do loads and loads of different things, including the ones that aren't as efficient. So when you're trying to scale that business, you just got to remember as well, you're growing your team at the same time. You've got to they're going to be sucking cash. You've got to train them. You've got to pay all their recruitment fees. You've got loads of other things going on in your business that take cash. So when you're scaling, you absolutely cannot have the mentality, you know what, as long as I get one client out of that, it'll have paid for itself, because you're always trying to get cash to the right places. So that's really important. And that should underpin your marketing philosophy. So that's one of those really important things. Just trying to understand, okay, where can I be most efficient? Yeah, so I've been talking about the statistics that I understand are behind marketing, But there's one other sort of mindset that I've really adopted over the years. Like, there's one thing I can visualize right now that I couldn't really visualize 10 years ago. And I think part of it is just because the service that we sell now, and especially the upgrade to the Apex program, is more of a premium service. So there's a lot more credibility involved in the sale. There's a lot more trust needed because we're not just selling standard accounting service at like 1,000 or a couple of £1,000 a year. Like, a lot of the time we're landing clients that pay a lot more than that, but then they want us to really manage their finances. And because of that, like, the whole idea of advertising, getting someone to see that ad in one place and then become a client, it doesn't work as much. Like, even when it did back then, when we had a relatively lower ticket offering. Now, because we're actually asking people to put a lot more trust in our business model and our solution, then there's got to be multiple points of contact. And I was talking to Christina Robinson a while ago, and she gave me a bit of useful advice, and it was... So Green Umbrella Marketing, they're a really good marketing firm. She gave me a bit of useful advice, which I kind of amalgamated into everything else. And really, that advice is like, if you want someone to buy a big ticket item from you as a business, they've really got to have seen you show up in like 15 places. Those are the points of contact. And there was one other really good video, and I think James Ashford, he's the guy that created Go Proposal, and then he sold it to Sage. But Go Proposal is like this billing software. Sorry, I know it sounds like I'm plugging loads of names in here just to try and get SEO credit on YouTube, but that's totally not what I'm doing. But James Ashford did a really good video on YouTube about marketing strategy, and it's so good because he just uses paper cups as an example. And the paper cups really represent stepping stones. So one cup's at one side of the river, the other cup is at the other side of the river. And, what James Ashford says in that video is just, he's saying most businesses, they'll advertise and they'll have that one point of contact, and they're asking a prospect to jump from one side of the river to the other side of the river. And every now and then you will get one person that makes the leap, and business owners will say, wow, that marketing strategy worked because someone just jumped, like someone we barely knew, as a prospect became a client. Yeah, you're always going to get lucky, but the vast majority of people are falling in the river because there's no stepping stones there. And what I'm really starting to describe now is a funnel. And a funnel is a really, really important strategy that I wasn't really aware of back then, but I am now, and I fully understand how it works. And we've started building we've built an effective funnel. So I'm going to talk about what that funnel is later in the video, and then hopefully you might be able to replicate it for your own business. But the key thing is, like, you've got to have the stepping stones in the way, or you've got to have different layers to the funnel, because it's not efficient to expect someone who's seen an advert of yours just to become a client. If you spent enough money on it, yeah, you're always going to get results just through the volume of people that are trying to make that jump, or the volume of leads that you're putting into that funnel. You'll always, even if your funnel's leaking or people are falling in the river, people are still going to make it through or drip through just through volume. But it's a really inefficient way, and it's very, very expensive. So that's something I'm really aware of now. Actually, you've got to think about the prospect journey a lot more. It's not just about, hey, here's my ad, and do you want to become a client? There is a prospect journey there, and it's got to be mapped out. It's got to be measured and monitored. And really, I guess the other side of it is what I know now, which I didn't back then, is essentially the difference between sales and marketing. So I guess if advertising is lead generation, marketing is taking that lead and putting them through a process, and then when they're ready to buy, or where they're a bit more interested in what you have, then sales is about taking that marketing qualified lead and then nurturing them to a point where actually they sign up as a client. So there's different levels of relationship, there's different levels of intent along the way there. And that's something I'm a lot more aware of now. But that's actually very relevant, because that's helped me structure our sales and marketing team in a way which means that the right people do the right things, and then you don't get too much scope creep, or have people being overwhelmed because they're doing too many things in their role. And I think probably the final thing I understand right now, which I didn't 10 years ago when I first started out is just what you really got to be willing to spend in terms of sales and marketing to build something up. So now, like, we help people actually increase the value of their businesses. So I've got this awareness now of how a business is valued, and I talk to people who sell their businesses all the time, and those people make a lot of money out of selling a business. There's people that make more money out of selling a business than they ever did running it, and that's really put things into perspective for me, because if someone 10 years ago came along and said to me, hey, you need to spend £100,000 on marketing, I'd like fall off my chair. I'd be like, there's no way I can afford that. Or you're crazy, I'm not going to spend £100,000 on marketing. But now, like, I'm actively seeing businesses sell for millions of pounds. And then if someone comes along to me today and says, look, you know what, the kind of business that you want to build up, it probably sell for about £2 million, because that's what other businesses in your industry or of that type sell for. And I'll be like, okay, I can believe that. Yeah, this business could be worth £2 million when it's the right size with the right structure in place. And then they could say to me, hey, but you're going to have to spend £100,000 on marketing. And I'd be right. Well, you know what? I'm like, building a business is like building a house. So yeah, I'm willing to spend £100,000 in marketing because I'm going to sell that business for 2 million and I'm going to make a profit of 1.9 million. So that's another mindset shift that's really, really hit home to me over the last few years, and that's incredibly important as well. So if you're watching this and you're in the first few years of business and you really don't want to invest in marketing, what you've really got to do if you want to shift that mindset is just understand what your business could potentially be worth when you're ready to sell it. And then once you understand that, it might make it easier for you to make those investment decisions when it comes to marketing, when it comes to sale, when it comes to growing your team. Hi, it's Nishi here. And before we continue with the rest of the podcast, I just want to take a few seconds to explain what we do. We're a firm of accountants and business advisors, and we are really passionate about helping people grow and scale their own businesses and achieve the lifestyle they deserve. To do this, we've created a series of resources on our website, unrelentingdrive.com. So once you've got a few minutes after this episode, it's definitely worth checking that out. And just a quick reminder, if you do enjoy this episode, just remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe. Okay, so now we've covered what I know now compared to what I knew back then. For the rest of this podcast, what I'm just going to quickly go through is the different marketing channels and types that I've tried over the years, what worked, what didn't. And then what we're then going to do is we're going to go into why, in my opinion, why marketing firms don't always work, but what the firms that do work for their clients do well. And then also then I'm going to just talk about our current content strategy, really. So I'm just going to get straight into it. Things I've tried over the years. Okay, when I first started my business, what was the first thing I did? I started writing letters to local businesses, and I was like, hey, I've just set up as an accountant. If you need an accountant. And by the way, I did this I bought a list of local businesses that were just starting up. So there's a lot of lists where it shows you all the new businesses that are setting up on Companies House. Obviously, you just got to, if you're an accountant, you've got to make sure you don't send it to another accountant's address, because a lot of our clients use our registered office. But I used to buy lists of businesses that were setting up, and I'd buy lists of, from like other new business data companies as well. So I'd know all the local businesses that were setting up as well as I could. And then I'd write a letter to them and say, hey, I'm just starting off as an accountant. This is what I'd normally charge, but for your first year as you're starting off as well, I'm just going to slash that to half the usual fee. My fees back then, it was me just as a one-man band, so my fees back then were like really cheap anyway. We didn't have the overheads. Now we've got a team of like 9.5 people, including me, and offices and a studio. But I mean, the other side of it is like, I'm not just talking about overheads. There's a lot of advantages to our current structure which really benefit our clients compared to when I was a one-man band. But I won't go into that right now. But what I'm really talking about is like I'd buy that data and then I'd write to the people. And then after a while, what I started doing, well, the very first thing I did was I started going into shops, local shops, and giving out my business card. And then it just wasn't particularly efficient, and I didn't feel massively comfortable doing it, because in the end of the day, I'm an accountant. I'm not necessarily a seasoned salesperson. And well, I might be now. I know a lot more about sales now, but 10 years ago, I literally knew nothing. So I didn't, and I also tried cold calling people, and I spent like a couple of days cold calling local businesses, and then I was like, I really can't do this. I just wasn't in the right mindset back then. What I did was I started writing to businesses. We got our first few clients from it. And also then after a while, I put bear in mind, I had like 5.5 grand as a marketing budget. I actually put an ad on Gumtree, and I found a telemarketer, this woman who wanted to work as a telemarketer as a contractor. And I think 10 years ago, I was paying her like £7 an hour. I'm still in touch with her, but she's retired now. And I worked out a script. I got her in my dining room, calling people on a mobile phone with that script, with data I'd bought. And we started getting clients by doing that, actually. One thing I think I kind of missed out on is we never used the whole direct mailing in conjunction with telemarketing. We didn't back then. Like later on when we did telemarketing campaigns, we did. Why did that? So I know direct mailing, I know telemarketing do work, but why don't we use them today? Well, mainly like part of me thinks it worked back then because our fees were so low. Like there wasn't as much of a relationship needed in terms of getting that sale. But the other side of it is I found ways to do it where the cost was so low that actually I could get a decent return on it. And I think from what I've seen with telemarketing these days, you've got to. It obviously does work. That's why people still do it. But for me, I don't. The way we've got our set up, it's not the most efficient thing. Like remember earlier in the podcast episode, I said like, it's not just about trying something and saying, well, if that gets me one client, it's gonna have paid for itself. It doesn't. That's not the right way to think. So now, even though there are things I'm talking about now that I know work, that we've tried in the past, and I could probably try again, and they would work, I'm not doing them because, in my opinion, they're not the most efficient use of the money that I'm going to spend in marketing. So. But if you were starting up telemarketing, direct mailing, definitely good. SEO, that's I was saying earlier how I built my own website in Wix, and with Wix it was bad for SEO. Well, I still got that website to rank number one. So in the first year before I had many clients to look after, I became an SEO expert essentially. I know barely anything about SEO now because it's changed so much. But back then I could get software which would just build crappy links overnight by me leaving the laptop open. And it's all what we would call black hat SEO. So, but I did a lot of stuff back then to really trick the system. And after about 6 months, I got our website to rank number one for accountants Northampton. And I know you might be saying, well, it's my own search browser, but I'd always check on incognito. I'd even go onto things like Moz or or Majestic SEO, and I'd see how we're ranking. So I did about 10 years ago. I managed to get that ranking SEO rank, and that was with a Wix site as well. And then as soon as I could afford it, I got like a web design agency to build that Wix site into a proper WordPress site. We maintained our SEO position, which was really good. And SEO is one of the ways that we really got most of our clients over the years. And it's been quite fundamental to us growing this business. And you might be thinking, well, why, if I search N accounting right now, why don't we come up? Obviously, if you search N accounting, we will come up. But if you search accountants Northampton, we're probably on the third page at the moment. So we've dropped a lot. But over the years, what we did was we decided to rebrand. So we used to be northantsaccounting.co.uk, and then we changed our domain to naccounting.co.uk. We did like 301 redirects to the new domain, but Google didn't like that, and we dropped our ranking quite a lot. And then when we decided to change our strategy to really focus on content, what we did was even though initially I got my website to rank myself, after a while, what I did was I outsourced it to an SEO company who are great, but when we decided to change our business model and do more advisory stuff, which was more trust-based, I came to the realization, well, actually, a lot of the clients we were getting through SEO, some of them were absolutely amazing, but some of them were just looking for a cheap quote. And I did a bit of analysis, and I came to the conclusion, actually, the amount of investment needed to keep the SEO going wasn't going to be the best strategy in terms of the kind of clients we were looking for today. And that's when I made the decision to pull the plug on the SEO. Do I regret doing that? Perhaps a little bit, because in hindsight, it was quite a good asset, and I probably could have, instead of shutting down that other URL, I probably could have just sold the leads on to another accounting firm and just maintained that for emergencies. And I've got a feeling if I just sold those leads on, they probably would have just covered the SEO costs. But ultimately, they would have given us more options, and actually, quite possibly, the clients that did come through that we really did want, we would have been able to cherry pick those and then sell the other leads on. The challenge with shutting down your SEO strategy is then setting it up all over again takes much, much more work. And also, we're talking about another domain now. We're naccounting.co.uk. We're not Northants Accounting anymore. The reason we shifted to N Accounting was because we didn't want to just be picking up clients in Northampton. We wanted to go further afield to Milton Keynes. We wanted to pick up clients further than our local area, because actually, we can work remotely. We can support clients over the phone, over Zoom. So it was a bit of a change of strategy. But then even now with our current strategy, we're still picking up a lot of local clients. So in hindsight, shutting down the SEO probably wasn't a good idea. I think if you're watching this and you've got decisions where you've got to pull the plug on something you're doing, or if you've been doing something, it might just be on the cusp of working and you've got to make a decision. Sometimes if what you're going to do is going to have a long-term impact and you're closing down an asset which you can't easily rebuild, then sometimes I think in hindsight I would have just tried to find a way to keep it going and what do we call it? Self-liquidated itself. So becoming a self-liquidating asset where essentially it pays for its own maintenance. That's always a good option to shutting something down if you can't afford it. Okay, so you're probably watching this on social media. I guess I'm not really going to go through what all the different kinds of social media are, but the chances are you probably found me on social media. And what I'm going to say is, you might be surprised, but I've actually been doing social media for about 8 or 9 years, and it's never really worked for us until about a year ago. And I'm gonna cover this a lot more in terms of what our strategy is later on in the podcast. But social media, it can work or it can't work. One thing I've realized over the years is there's a right and wrong way to do social media. And over the last 7 years, up to about a year ago, we were doing it wrong. And the main reason we were doing it wrong is we just weren't being consistent enough. We weren't doing enough of it. We didn't have the call to actions. We weren't specific about who our target market is, and we weren't creating tailored content for that target market. And in hindsight, social media is that one thing we really missed out on over the years. We're doing it, we're back with a vengeance now. We have got an amazing strategy in place for it, but I do sometimes wonder. Well, I don't have any regrets a lot of the time, but I'm fully aware that if I was doing the stuff we're doing in social media now, 5 or 6 years ago, our business would be 10, 20 times the size. So it's just worth noting that actually, I've got a feeling pretty much all roads point to social media when it comes to marketing. I can't really think of a business type where it's not that appropriate. I'm fully aware different businesses, whether you're business to customer, whether you're business to business, there'll be different platforms that work for you. But actually, I'm still struggling to come across a business model where social media is not that appropriate. But that's definitely the one I regret not really focusing on earlier on. We've done leafleting in the past. Did leafleting work? Yeah, it got me a couple of leads. Did any of them turn to clients? No, I don't think they did. No. Leafleting, but we didn't do it consistently enough, because every week or month I get leaflets from local estate agents coming through the door, and they've been doing it consistently for years. So I know it works. And I can imagine there's lots of instances where it does, but we like with anything in marketing, you just got to do it consistently. It's, in fact, I'm confident any marketing strategy I'm talking about right now, if you just did it for 2 years, just tweaked it, improved it over time, refused to give up, even when you weren't getting the results straight away, you would get results out of any of these. It'd be very difficult not to get results out of it. This is where most people go wrong. The one thing I really learned, 10 years down the line now is you'll always be able to get some kind of marketing strategy work. You just got to make sure you've got the cash flows in place to sustain that strategy, and then you've got to also have a way of getting the quick easy wins if you need clients in the short term as well. So that's just definitely something to be worth considering. Networking is something I've been doing. I did very extensively all the way up to COVID, and we did get clients from it. It took a while to get those clients. Sometimes we'd get clients where we'd met them like 4 years before, or like 3 years before, and they'd be like, "Hey, I saw you at that networking group, and then I've been seeing you on social media." So yeah, one of the other points is a lot of these strategies support each other, but we networking has worked. It was a very slow burn, like yeah, and sometimes as I think I'd been networking for about 9 months before we got our first client from it. But really over the years, people did come in through networking. And then COVID hit and I kind of stopped networking because after doing so much stuff on Zoom, I just could not do networking on Zoom as well. So my network kind of shrunk a bit. It became a bit more insular. But after Zoom, it'd been a couple of years, and also because I had kids, and it was really difficult to manage the networking requirements with looking after the kids. Like, my network did shrink a lot, and the benefits of networking shrunk. So, but it's definitely worth checking out. But once again, it just depends on the type of industry you're in, the kind of clients you're looking for. But I think networking can work for any business. But you've just got to network in the right places. And one thing people should really consider and be aware of is networking isn't just going to a breakfast meeting or a lunch meeting and then sitting in a circle and going through a structured meeting. It's like, meeting people down the pub or going to lunch, or even just interacting with them in other ways and speaking to them. So it's definitely something people just got to understand, what is networking, what does it look like, and also have the right strategy. One of the most important things is you're not selling to the people in the room, you're selling to the people they know. Like, I'm just going to throw a load of cliches at you. You're not hunters, you're farmers. You're trying to find the goose that lays the golden egg. Who's that one person who can introduce you to lots of people that you want to do business with? That's the fundamental part of networking. Networking never works when you're just going out trying to get a client. You're going out trying to get those referrals. And when you focus on that, that's really important, because that helps you create strategic referral partners. And that's something I've learned over the years, really focus on having those SRPs, people that will recommend you to people. And then when you have them, just look after them as well as you can. That might be one of the reasons, actually, I did cut back on my network meetings over COVID, because I'd already built up a network of people who were referring us. So it's a gift that keeps giving even after you stop going to meetings, essentially. But now I'm back in meetings because I wanted to expand my network. I wanted to meet new people anyway. I wanted to meet the kind of people that were dealing with the new types of clients we were working with, those businesses that wanted to scale and expand. So it made a lot more sense for me to get out and do that networking. A few other things we've done is, we've been to exhibitions before. Exhibitions I think it's hard to get clients directly from an exhibition. But we've had leads from the last couple we did, but they probably weren't the most suitable leads. So it's just worth, and also exhibitions can be quite expensive. So if you're quite early on in your business, it can be difficult to fund them. But the other side of it is it also depends where you go. We've been to certain ones where the types of business in the room just weren't the right type for us, even though the organisers had promised they would be, whereas we've been to others where actually they were the right size, they were the right kind of businesses. So they're not all equal. But certain being able to really think about, where you're going to exhibit, that's important. And then referrals are another. So I know I've kind of covered networking, but I'm talking about client referrals. Like a lot of businesses out there, they talk about word of mouth and they think word of mouth happens by accident. It really doesn't. Word of mouth is a process. First thing you got to do is make sure you've got a process to make sure your clients are happy. So word of mouth starts with customer service. There's been times we've been really good with it. There's been times where we've lagged behind a little bit on it because of process changes and the way we adopted new techniques and technologies. And then there's times where we've got ahead in terms of customer service as well. Like I don't know if you can see that, but that's our Gold Winner 2022 Service Excellence Award. So we got a certain level of recognition for our customer service as well. But ultimately, with once you're confident that your customers are happy, then that's where we've got to really be proactive about getting those reviews, but also then saying, hey, look, do you know anyone else that isn't getting the service they need from their accountant? Can you introduce us? And that's a really important one. Referrals don't happen by accident. I think some business owners are better than others. Like it's very easy just to focus on marketing to external prospects, but actually you've got to think about the connections you already have. Okay, so what I just want to do now is I'm going to wrap this podcast up with a quick discussion about where I think marketing firms don't always work for businesses and where they do. And then I'm going to just talk you through our marketing strategy. So, all right, marketing firms, there can be really good ones out there, and there can be some not so good ones. And the chances are, and there's a couple of things you got to think about as well, is the chances are you're going to have to outsource when it comes to some of your marketing. Like even if you're building an in-house marketing team, I really believe in building an in-house marketing team because for various reasons which I'll get into, but you're always going to end up outsourcing, and it's really important to think about who you outsource to, because if you try and do it on cost, you might get multiple quotes, and one firm might be much cheaper than the others, but in the end of the day, like zero results if it costs you £500, or getting good results where it's cost you £20,000, you're still getting better value for the 20,000 potentially, as long as you're making a profit on it. And it depends, but what I'm trying to say is with marketing firms, you can't always go by the cheapest. What you've got to do is really understand what people are saying. So one of the biggest challenges I've seen with marketing firms is when they try and do everything. But there's so many marketing firms I've talked about where they don't start from the beginning. They don't actually really talk to you about who your ideal customer is. They don't actually sit down with you and help you understand the kind of how to communicate your solution and the value you add. And this is like, there's some foundations which a marketing firm should, in my opinion, should really go through with the customer. But over the years, I've seen people not do that. And that's already setting your venture with them up for failure. And that's one thing I wanted to just point out. Like, if you're talking to marketing people, you've got to make sure that they're putting the right strategic groundwork in place. You've got to make sure they're taking the time to actually listen to what you do and understand what you do. And there's quite a few reasons I'm going to go into. This isn't a negative bit. If you're running a marketing firm, please don't come back to me and say I'm dead wrong. Sorry, I'll definitely value your feedback on it, but I'm not. This isn't a dig at what you do, because I've got a lot of respect for marketing people. I think marketing people are amazing, but I just want to talk about when it's worked for us and when it hasn't worked for us. But aside from getting the foundations in place when you're working with a marketing firm, one of the really, really important things, in my opinion, is just understanding the volume of what is needed. There's so many marketing firms out there who'll come along and say, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this for you. And it might be all the right stuff, but one thing they might have factored in is actually doing those things at 10% is not going to get you any results. They need to be done at 100%. They need to be done at 10 times the volume they're actually quoting you for. There is a threshold with marketing, right? Like if you've got to have those 15 points of contact, and this, by the way, there's so many times when I talk to business owners who want to open up another business before they've got their first business working to the right level. And one of the things is, like, if you've got to have 15 points of contact before, or 15 stepping stones before you get someone over the line to becoming a customer, then you're not going to achieve anything if you get two people across 8 of those stepping stones and then they fall in. So what I'm trying to say with that is, like, if you've got 2 businesses and you're splitting your marketing budget and you've got, like, 2 people who don't get across that river, you still have 0. So it's better to have one business where you can build all those 15 stepping stones and get, like, one person over the river. Those stepping stones I was talking about in all the various levels of your funnel, they all take resources and money, and that's why you've got to be careful about splitting your resources too much. But this is one of those things, marketing firms that I've come across, not all of them, by the way, but some marketing firms don't always factor in. They only help you build 3 or 4 of the stepping stones, and it's just not enough to get you any kind of result. And part of the reason they sometimes do that is it's because they don't want to charge you what it really costs. They're looking at you, or they're looking at your business and thinking, okay, well, this is what this business can afford to pay, so let's give them something that the business can afford, rather than give them the thing that's going to get them that result. And that's something you've got to be really, really aware of. If someone's trying to just give you a quote, or if someone's trying to give you a set of services based on your budget, then that should be a red flag for you straight away. What you've really got to be talking to those marketing people about is, what are the outcomes that you need? What are your targets? And then they should be coming back and with a budget and saying, okay, well, this is what is needed to do that. And that's just something I've noticed over time. It's like, and this is one, there'll be some things that you should definitely outsource to marketing people. Like, we outsource our web design, we've outsourced our SEO in the past, we've outsourced pay-per-click marketing in the past, we outsource our PR. There are lots of things we do outsource, and to amazing businesses. And if you ever want to know who's helping us on what, then definitely get in touch. I'll give a shout out to Ballyhoo PR. They're absolutely amazing with organising guests for our podcast and getting us into certain publications and events. We've got Weaving Webs, who really look after our web design. We got Chris at Spring Hill Marketing, who's really done amazing job with our SEO over the years. But there's many other people that we work with. So sorry if I didn't cover everything. But and also you're watching the podcast edited by Eldril, so they do a lot of the editing. But there's certain things where it's very difficult for us to. You need specialists to do that. And if we were to hire specialists in-house, if we were going to hire like an expert at video editing, or we were going to hire an expert at PR, it would cost so much and we wouldn't have enough work for them. And that's where it makes sense to outsource it. But the challenge with that as well, with sometimes doing things in-house, is a lot of these marketing firms as well, especially on the PR side, they've already got loads of contacts in place that they can already leverage. Especially with our PR company that we use, if a member of my team was to go out and trying to get us into certain publications or get us certain guests, it would take them a lot more work to do it than a PR agency who's already got a list of guests, who's already got connections with the editors of all these publications. So it's something like, a lot of the time when you outsource, you're outsourcing to people who can do things a lot faster because they're already set up to do it a lot faster. So while their hourly rate might be like 3 or 4 or 5 times the hourly rate of a member of my team, then the chances are, if they're doing it much, much quicker with less hassle and less learning curve, then actually it can. And also, getting it right first time does matter, because it means you can deliver. Like, marketing is like project management a lot of the time. We know when things are going to happen, and we've got to make sure everything's in place for that to happen. So working with people who don't let you down is really important. But when ultimately, a lot of the time, certain things you do want to do in-house, like, in my opinion, there is no there's nothing that can beat having someone in your business, living and breathing your business, talking to people in your business, capturing those stories all the time. That makes a huge difference. And one of the challenges you can sometimes get with digital marketing agencies or any kind of marketing agency is they're not close enough to your business. And then by the time you've really worked it out with them and worked out what the content needs to be, then what often happens is you've put so much of your own time into it anyway that you could have just done the work yourself. But over time, you're hoping that will improve, and as they learn your business better, you'll get a lot more leverage for your time that you spend dealing with them. But actually, a lot of the time, it can actually make sense to do certain things in house, because especially when you're working on social media, like earlier I was saying, just the sheer volume of content and in the right places and the quality of content needed. Sometimes, outsourcing it, they just can't give you the amount of time needed to get something done to the right standard and get you that leverage on social media that you need. So that's why we don't always use agencies for everything, and that's something you've got to work out. So just to summarize this bit, though, I'm in no way saying marketing agencies are bad. They're an incredibly important part of your marketing infrastructure. It'd be very difficult for you to scale a business without using them, but you just got to make sure you work with the right people, the people that are results driven, the people that don't make excuses or try and avoid accountability. That's another one. You can end up talking to people and you'd be like, okay, well, how long is it going to take to get results on this? And then when they're and some of them just won't commit to anything, and fine, they might not be able to, they might not really know, but if they're not focused on a time frame for you to get some kind of return on your investment, then actually that can be a good indicator that they're not focused on the results, and they're only doing the job you pay them to do rather than the job that's going to get you what you need to grow your business. So it's definitely worth talking to the right people. There's a massive, and just bear in mind, there are some institutions which marketers are actually signed up to and that regulate them, but actually anyone can set up a marketing agency just like anyone can set up an accounting firm. So you've got to do your homework and talk to people and understand the credibility behind what they're offering, to make sure you're dealing with the right people. Okay, and so in the last part of this podcast, what I really want to talk about is just the things that we're doing at the moment that are working. And there's actually one thing which I didn't really mention in the things I've tried earlier, which is really kind of important, and it will help just reinforce the point about consistency and showing up every day. And for years, we did a video every week, and then we stopped doing it, and then we started doing it again, and we'd do a video every week. And you know what? We just weren't getting results out of it. We weren't getting clients from it. And I finally got to a point after about probably a year and a half ago where I was like, look, I'm done with video. I just can't be bothered anymore because we're just not getting anything out of it. And before I gave up, my coach, Amanda, she just said, hey, try this one thing. And that thing was essentially, she said, okay, well, instead of doing a video every week, do one every single day. So you've probably seen a lot of my 3 or 4 minute videos, and they're quite good because they've got multiple functions, which I'll tell you about in a minute anyway. But so I said, okay, look, finally, before I give up doing these videos every week, one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just start doing them every day for a period of time. And I start doing them every day, and about 3 months later, I got my first client from those videos. Someone who came along and said, hey, I've been watching your videos. They're really resonating with all the stuff that I'm going through in my own business at the moment. And I thought, wow, okay, these videos worked. And I kept doing them every day. And then we got more clients out of it. So this is just an example, but it's not really... It's part of my strategy, but it is not my strategy. I'm going to explain where everything sits in the actual strategy right now. But that's just one other point I just wanted to point out is, you might be doing certain things at the moment, just not in the right quantities. Just like I made that point about the marketing agencies, they might be doing all the right things, just not in the right quantities. And but when you do get that quantity right and you get that consistency right, you can actually get some amazing results out of it. So these 3 or 4 minute videos we're doing, they've got a few functions. And really, the videos are a great way to create a blog, right? Like you're probably thinking, why can't I just go to ChatGPT, put a topic into ChatGPT, and then get a blog written by ChatGPT out of that topic? And one of the things about using AI, and this is what I've learned from talking to SEO experts, really is just like it can create great sounding and written content, but actually it's not going to give you that. It's not going to put you forward as a thought leader. It's not really original content, and search engines are clever enough to really understand that. I know there's people out there that have got websites to rank just by using ChatGPT and other search engines. But in general, like to get ahead on any of the platforms, you've got to be a thought leader. And what that means is like you can't just rely on AI to write things for you. And that's where video has been really, really useful for us, because actually I can come up with a short 2 or 3 minute video just off a topic I know, off the top of my head, give my original opinion on it, and then that video can then be turned into a transcript, and then that transcript can actually then go into AI software and then be turned into a blog. So that's a really leveraged way to actually get some good quality written content, but also get that video as well for the social media platforms. All right, so for the final part of this podcast, by the way, you might hear a bit of background noise because there's a thunderstorm going on outside, but apologies for that. You know, the show must go on. So this final part of the podcast, I just want to talk about what we're doing in terms of our own marketing and stuff that really works for us right now, and how it links into our overall strategy. Well, so one thing the way I used to think a long time ago was, a long time ago when I first started this business, I was always like, look, I've got to have a 3-month plan to get customers, I've got to have a 6-month plan to get customers, and then I've got to have a 1-year plan to get customers. And that's how I compartmentalized the different activities I was doing. I was always really clear though that I wasn't going to just rely on one marketing channel at any point, because I'm fully aware, like, you know, marketing channels, they can get taken away from you. Like, you know, Google can be unfavorable with its algorithm, like Facebook. You can shut down your account. There's a lot of things that, you know, one thing my business coach always said is definitely worth just understanding is, you know, when you build that email marketing list, actually it's your own list. It's very difficult for someone to take that email marketing list away from you. So it's definitely worth going through the trouble of that. But I'm going to just put it all into, give you an overview of our strategy and then help you understand how it all fits together. So one thing that's really interesting and worth noting here, because like I've been doing videos for years, and I do like a 3 or 4 minute information video every week, and I did it for years, and I stopped for a bit, and then I started it again, and we just weren't getting any results, and I was ready to just give it up. But one thing my coach said to me was, look, before you give it up, just try one other thing, and that was try and do a video every single day. At the moment, you do a video every week. Try and do a video every single day for like a few months. And I was like, okay, all right, because I trusted her. I always trust her. But I started doing those videos every single day, and what happened was after about 3 months, we actually got a client from it, and then a month after that, we got another client from it, and then now we've been getting a consistent stream of leads and clients from doing those videos every day. And earlier when I was saying, like, you know, sometimes marketing agencies, they offer you the right service, they'll sell you the right things, they'll do them in the right way, they just won't do enough of them. And this was definitely an example of us not doing enough of it. But one thing to note here is, like, I don't really believe in standalone marketing strategies. Everything is interconnected as part of our funnel. So when I'm talking about videos that we're doing, that's a top of funnel activity. And we don't do so many information videos anymore, actually. Like, what we've done is we've replaced them with this podcast. So you might be watching this podcast on YouTube, for example, or you might actually just be watching a clip of this podcast on Facebook or LinkedIn, or you might be watching a short or a reel. And what we've done is, like, I've created a leveraged way, like even before, like, you know, everything we've done, it's got to have multiple uses, because a lot of the time, good marketing and good marketing strategy is just about it is really important to have quality content, but it's also about having the right volume of content. So creating like one asset which you can use over and over and again is really, really important. So whenever we build something, whenever we take the time to film something, we don't want to just use it that one time. So That's a really important thing to factor in. So, we stopped doing those information videos. But when we did those information videos, we'd essentially take the transcript from those information videos, put them into Chat GPT, and use that to rewrite it into a blog. It would be an AI written blog, but it would be based off my original content, so it'd still be unique in terms of its thoughts and ideas. So that was really important. And then we'd use that blog on our website. But now what we do is we'll be clipping. This episode might be like an hour long, but we'll be clipping 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute slots. We'll be taking those reels, getting transcripts from that, and we'll also be turning that into blogs as well. So that's a really important one. But the key thing to just remember is if we talk about it in the context of the funnel, actually the shorts and the reels and the clips that you're watching, they are really the top of our funnel. The chances are if you're just watching this is what a 2-minute clip that you're watching, it's unlikely that you're going to pick up the phone and buy something from us after just watching this clip. So what we've then got to do is get you to invest more in building that relationship with us. And the next step really is get you to watch the whole podcast and divert you to that. And so what I've just described now is really the top of our funnel activity. But in reality, the idea is not to get people who are watching a clip of this to buy straight away. We want to get them to invest a bit more time and watch the entire podcast, and because that's improving the relationship they're building with us, but also it's asking a bit more from them at the same time. So we'll get closer by them watching a whole podcast, but actually they have to commit a bit more. So asking for that commitment up front and saying to someone, hey, watch an hour-long podcast, it's a bit much. That's why we've got to ease people into that by showing these smaller clips and the reels and the shorts. And then when people really go to our podcast, we want to start getting them to engage with the rest of our content. So rather than just someone watching our podcast and then picking up the phone and saying, hey, I want to be a customer, what we've then got to do is then get them to our website where they start interacting with the rest of our content. One of the other great bits of content we've got a guide called the 6 Secrets to Maintaining Healthy Cash Flows as you grow your team, and it's targeted, the kind of people who are going to be good clients of ours. Those are the kind of issues that they're actually having at the moment, and that's why a guide, it's slightly more commitment, but it's easy to digest. People can download it, view it at their own convenience, and then the guide is then encouraging people to go check out more of our content, and that content could be going to our webinar. So we've got a webinar called The 5 Foundations of a £1 Million Business, and that's really worth checking out as well. But the thing is, we can't get people we don't really know to go straight to the webinar, because if you think about it, a webinar, it's a commitment. People got to spend 40 minutes of their time and show up at a certain time and keep it in their diary. They've got to commit to turning up, and if we've got no relationship with that prospect, then asking them to do that right off the bat is too much. The webinar is lower down in our funnel. And then when people have watched our webinar, we want people to come to our quarterly planning days. So our strategy then is to talk about our quarterly planning days to those people and say, okay, look, if you want to spend a bit more time with us, learn about what we do, walk away with some really good value, come to the quarterly planning day. But then you're asking people to pay money, you're asking them to commit a whole day of their time. When you're a director of a company, a whole day of your time is really valuable. So we can't just do that off the bat either. We can't go to people who don't know who we are and just say, hey, give up a day of your time to spend the day with us. So that's got to be lower down in the funnel. And then at the very end, after they've been through that quarterly planning day, we have a free strategy session where people can actually come along, and we'll talk to them about increasing the value of their own business. We'll educate them about how business valuation works. So that's the final bit where we can really give them some value in that one-on-one action-packed hour. Really, that's a larger commitment on our side, because that means we're doing one work with someone for free, and that means we've got to make sure that we're talking to the right people, because we don't want to use up valuable time and resources on people who aren't the right fit in terms of clients. So what I've just described there is a funnel, and there's so many instances where people might just go from watching the podcast to becoming a client. There's instances where people might never have seen our podcast and just sign up to a webinar. The funnel doesn't always work in a linear way. People go from the top to the bottom and skip a load of steps. Sometimes people go through various bits, but the idea is like in an ideal world, you're always trading people up to the next commitment and the next bit of investment in that relationship with you. And then over time, going from spending a day with you on quarterly planning to working with you as a client, it's not that big a leap. And that's how we've created the stepping stones. For me, I'm the director of this business, so actually, and more importantly though, I'm a chartered management accountant and I'm passionate about that. So I could say, am I an accountant? Am I a business owner? I would say my main passion is supporting businesses with financial management, and that's never really changed. The reason I build a team and do all the marketing, partly because I want to lead the way. I want to show clients how it can be done to a good standard. But part of it also is actually it's so I can reach out and help more people as well with my skill set. But ultimately, for me, the goal is always to get the marketing to run with as minimum input as possible. So a lot of the podcasts where we're creating content off the back of it, and then we're filling the gaps with other kinds of posts. We're trying to do as much to introduce the team to our marketing as well. So we want to get the team comfortable with the marketing elements. We want to get customers and prospects comfortable seeing our team and understanding I'm not just a one-man band anymore, and building that relationship there. And also then my commitment at the moment, we do have external marketing agencies that we work with, and I mentioned them earlier in this podcast, but we also have internal marketing people. So we've got two marketing people. Ellie was filming the first part of this podcast, then she had to dash off, and then Simona just came in. So she's behind the camera now. And we got internal marketing people who know our business really well, who can actually just do a lot of the day-to-day work related to just maintaining that consistency and tempo of marketing needed to actually get us the results that we want. And what that means is, at the moment I spend 1 day a week on marketing, really. Probably about 2 or 3 hours of that is BNI, and I'm doing BNI related stuff, just call it half a day. And then the other half a day is filming a podcast. And then but if you didn't do networking and BNI, it'd be half a day a week. And then that podcast that we film, it gets turned into loads and loads of content. And then that's me done for the week. So it never quite works out that neatly, but typically, by getting the right processes and team in place, we've got my marketing commitment down to about an hour, a day a week, which is really important, because that means I can spend 4 days actually working with our customers, and 4 days also, including training our team to be better accountants. So that's been a really, really important thing for me. So if I could summarize this podcast at this stage, a couple of the things I would just say is don't underestimate the volume and quantity of content needed. Don't underestimate the quality of content needed. And just be really clear with yourself about what you need to outsource in marketing, because you definitely need to outsource. Make sure that you've got a stringent selection criteria for anyone you outsource to. It should be, when you're outsourcing marketing, you should be really interviewing agencies, and also build that infrastructure in-house as well. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, all the stuff I'm describing is expensive. Yes, and I'm going to go back to that first point, or one of the first points I had earlier on, in terms of why I understand now. Marketing is expensive, but it's also lucrative. And you're not just, when you land a client, they're not just helping you make a profit, they're building up the value of your business, so they're giving you equity as well. So if you're doing this, if you're watching this, and one day you do want to sell your business, if you wanted that £1 million valuation, if you want a £2 million valuation, bear in mind you are one day going to need to retire, or you might need to take a step back and have that business grow without you. Then actually this marketing, it is expensive, but it's an investment in your future, and you will definitely get that investment back if you do it right and you do it consistently. So That's mainly what I wanted to cover today. So just as a sign off, you've been watching the Unrelenting Drive podcast. Yes, it is a slightly different format to usual, and just remember next week we'll be back with lots of great interviews. But I just wanted to share my own experiences with marketing, because I know I get so many questions about people that are trying to do it at the moment, and I want to make sure they do it right first time, because doing it wrong can destroy businesses, and it can use up all their cash in a way they can't afford. So thanks for watching. You've been great. I'll see you at the next episode.